Hi friends! Yoga teacher training update for weekend number 3. And what a weekend it was. So the word of the weekend for me was surrender. And we typically think of surrendering as a negative or giving up, that sort of thing, but I'm actually looking at it in a more beautiful light because a few different things happened. So the main reason that I chose this word is because I personally had to surrender to something this weekend that is a little bit more difficult for me. Because, like I think I've mentioned on here before, that I had a knee injury that led me to have surgery at just about a year ago, or right at a year ago. So I'm still recovering from that surgery, which is very difficult for me. And so when we were going through this weekend of teacher training, we were focused on Warrior One. And so interestingly that I'm choosing surrender for a warrior weekend. But we were going through Warrior One, and I wore my knee brace like normal and was trying to take it as easy as I thought I could take it. And it was just more difficult for me. So it did feel difficult, and I was putting pressure and strain on my knee, but I still thought I was okay. Unfortunately, I was extremely wrong on that. I was actually not okay, and so during the practice, I did not take it as easy as I needed to. And later on that day, so Saturday was the long day, and we were focused on Warrior One, the beginning part of Saturday. And so towards the end, about several hours into yoga teacher training that day, my knee said I needed to surrender very quickly. And so for me, it really was very difficult for me to go through that and realize, I really thought I was doing okay by taking it easier than I typically would have. And gosh, I had to do it even more. So the following day on Sunday, I actually ended up not even fully practicing. So I thought I was just going to observe the class. But the instructor did something so wonderful, which she said, I encourage you to take any movements that you can without using your legs. So basically what I ended up doing, which was so incredible to have her as a support system in that, is that she encouraged me to do whatever I needed to do. She told me I was totally allowed to observe, but she said, we're going to be sitting for the rest of the class, so I would encourage you to take the movements of your spine if you can. So what I did was I sat on my mat and never stood up, because I knew myself. I knew if I stood up, I would just do it, because that's what I did the day before. So I just never stood up. So I mimicked all of the spine movements on my mat with just, stretching or bending back, anything like that I could do to stretch my spine, which really worked out. And she was very helpful with the cues. I just kind of watched her as everyone else was standing. She would kind of mimic something that I could do. It was great. So she was wonderful. And that brings me to the most amazing thing about surrendering. So here we are, learning Warrior One and all of the small, minute details of that specific pose. And, I'm the next day, later on that day, needing to surrender. And so what I realized was that the support that I had, not only from the instructors, but also from my fellow students who were just amazing as well. And it's amazing to think about how, I hate to go back to this term of fighting or a battle, but we're in this life, in that moment I was in a yoga practice and I'm fighting this battle with my knee, and my fellow soldiers around me in this battle were just so wonderful. And so having that support system is really important. And it was very clear to me to have that support from the instructors, and thinking about that from becoming a yoga teacher, being that support to someone is so important. And also the fellow students who are around me were amazing. And so asking if I was okay, it was just very easy for me to surrender. Once I got over myself, it was easy to do the surrendering for everyone around me. So, but I don't want it to seem like everything was doom and gloom and it was terrible. It was actually a wonderful weekend. So we learned a lot about Warrior One, which was interesting, and dissecting the small movements of that particular pose, which was very insightful to me as a marketer. So I think about how I teach yoga teachers how to have these marketing efforts, whatever the case may be, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or all these different things that you could do. And I think about how, okay, if you think about something being difficult, so if Warrior One is difficult for someone or they don't quite understand it, breaking it down to understand the small details and the why. Why is this pose a good pose to try? So specific reasons, if you want to work on alignment of your hips, or I'm lacking of the details right now, but thinking about the why would this be a good pose for so and so? And so I think about that with marketing, and I think, how can I take that technique and take that down to Instagram or YouTube or whatever I'm teaching at that moment? And so it was really neat to see it from that lens. And so we learned about Warrior One. We learned a lot about breath and dove right into pranayama, which was so fascinating to me because as I've gone through several traumatic experiences in my life, I've learned some breathing techniques from counselors, doctors, family members, that sort of thing. And now I know the anatomy behind it, which was fascinating to me. Now I know why it works, how it works, all of those things. So we had a great guest instructor that came in, and he was able to really explain the anatomy of breath and how the diaphragm works and all of that. So that was really neat. And so, but one of my favorite things that happened this weekend was last week on my Instagram, I posted that I haven't had a belly laugh in way too long. That I'm an over planner. I'm really not good with spontaneous things happening in my life. And so having a belly laugh was something that I wanted to do. So I posted that on Instagram, and let me tell you, I'm a firm believer in what you speak can happen. I definitely believe in that, and it happened this weekend. So I had some belly laughs in yoga teacher training that I just could not even imagine happening before. And my absolute favorite, there were several, but my absolute favorite was something that I just love that was included in yoga teacher training. It wasn't on the agenda or anything, but it came up, and I love that we talked about it. And so whether this is the correct terminology to use or not, we talked about farts in yoga class. And they happen. And so one of my fellow students asked, what do you do when that happens? And I just loved that the instructors had such great answers. So one of the instructors said, I take it as a compliment. If you are relaxed enough to fart, that means you're super relaxed. So that means that I did my job by having you get relaxed in this class. What a great way to look at it, right? And then the other instructor said basically the same thing. She takes it as a compliment, but she usually just keeps going unless someone, audibly recognizes it and calls attention to it. She just keeps on going. But she said, hearing it is one thing, smelling it is different. So you can see why I was belly laughing at this point. But she did have a tip, which I'm happy to share with you today. So if you're a yoga teacher and you're wondering what this tip is, I can't wait to share it with you. She said there's usually essential oils in the room, whether you have them or they're just provided. Get some essential oils, rub it on your hands, and then walk around the class and wave your hands about as you're talking up and down the aisles, and it will help the smell. So there's that. And these are the things that I just love that's included in yoga teacher training. Because like I said, it wasn't on the agenda, but we talk about these types of things, which that's the real stuff. What do you do if someone passes out in class? What do you do if someone farts in class? What do you do if there's a disturbance outside the class? Do you call the police? These types of things all come up in our yoga teacher training, and that is why I love it so much. So, if you remember from the last update, I needed to practice teach. So this is the last thing I wanted to touch on today, and I have been practicing teaching. So my poor husband is my number one student, so poor guy. He's hanging in there with me, and I'm learning a lot. But I still need to practice teach. It is getting better. By no means, by absolute no means, do I think I'm a good teacher yet. But I'm getting better, which seeing the improvement is all I need to see to keep going. So I'm getting better. I will continue to teach and continue to breathe and use my techniques that I further learned this weekend to continue to surrender, be okay with the fact that my knee is not my favorite thing right now, and keep moving on. So if you have any comments, I would love to hear them. Connect with me anytime, and I will have another update for you soon. See ya.